Hi, everybody. Welcome to the International Schools Anti-Discrimination Task Force. We are the Humanising Pedagogy Committee, and we'd like to welcome everybody to this meeting. If you could warm up the chat by sharing with us who you are, your school that you're dialing in from, or the area that you're based in, and perhaps even your role. That would be great. So you can get to know everybody in the room. Thank you so much for joining. And yeah, so there are going to be two sessions throughout this day. So another one in about 6 hours to accommodate the different time zones so that we can reach as many people in our international school community as possible. So thank you so much for joining us this early or in the day from wherever it is you're dialing in from. Uh, so thank you. My name is Angeline Au, and I'm dialing in from Berlin, where I work part-time at Berlin International School, and I'm the PYP curriculum coordinator there. And I'm also work part-time for the Council of International Schools, where I work in the professional learning team. And I'd like to hand it over to David, another member of our committee, to introduce himself.
Hello, greetings everyone. I'm David. I'm talking from Budapest. I work at the American International School of Budapest. I'm the DIJB lead. I also teach Spanish. And I'm gonna pass it to Raisa.
Hello everyone, I'm Raisa Roma. I'm dialing in from Shanghai. I work here in the language support department as an EEL teacher.
And hi, everyone.
I pass it over to Michael.
Hi, everyone. Michael here. I'm currently in Luxembourg at St. George's International School, and I'm a DEIJ coordinator. And really excited that all of you have joined us today.
Thank you. And so I'm grateful to have the co-facilitators of our committee here to share with to present with me this morning here in Berlin and perhaps afternoon or evening for you. And I can see that we have an amazing group of educators here with us today, ranging from the Netherlands, Switzerland, Hong Kong, Azerbaijan, and all across Europe and more. So thank you so much for tuning in. And to this co-founder hosted meeting, and today we're being hosted by ECIS. And so thank you very much to them for providing us with this platform to share our humanizing pedagogy work. And I'm going to hand it back over to David as well.
So this morning we have the goal of sharing with you what's been our journey for the Humanizing Pedagogy Committee. We would like to share the whole journey, but also stopping in some areas like our aims and principles, and also the resulting guidance that we got after these 2 years of work. That result, the final result, is composed by the overarching statement, the 7 educators' commitments, the 7 commitments for institutions, and a glossary that will help any user of this tool to understand any terms where they could face any difficulty. Also, we would like to take the opportunity today to call to action, because we would like people to start using what we've been creating and share their stories of how these learning stories of how this tool is working and what's the impact that this tool is having in their practice. I think we are ready for the next one. Yeah. So the journey is an ongoing journey, and we are going to share until now where we are at. So everything started in October 2022. We've met face-to-face in Geneva, and we created the International Schools Anti-Discrimination Task Force. There we were divided into different committees, and we were part of the curriculum committee. We will explain later how we changed the name and how we get to humanizing pedagogy, but that was our first seed. We started with the curriculum commitment. Then the first half of 2023, we expanded the ideas that we developed in that first face-to-face meeting, and we were divided into 4 subcommittees: ways of knowing, doing, and understanding, practice, culture, and impact. So we, under these 4 umbrellas, we started doing the research and unpack the concepts we would like to propose and get into them further and explore them. So at the end of 2023, the concepts we were exploring were evolving, and we were always very flexible in the divergence and convergence process that we will explain later today to adjust, because we had a very clear idea of what we wanted, where we wanted to reach. So we were very flexible in changing and adapting as we were unpacking the key concepts of our work. In early 2024, our work was taken to the ALOC conference in Hanoi, and we got feedback that helped us and guidance for our final products. And throughout 2024 until October, we finalized the guidance, the commitments, and we got ready to share the materials we have designed. So they were released in October 2024. And I'm gonna put in the chat now the link to the guidance document so you can all explore and see what we are talking about. And I'm gonna pass it to Angeline now.
Thank you so much, David. And yeah, to give you a little bit more insight into each part of our timeline, we're just going to dive a little bit more deeply into it. So this was our in-person kickoff event that happened in Geneva, where I was asked to facilitate this 11 group of educators who were really passionate about curriculum. And you can see David was there with me as well. And so here are just some impressions. And we've had different contributors come and go. Our face-to-face experience was really key to founding our concept, and our rest of our collaboration actually took place online. And so we started as the curriculum committee, and where we kind of had a more traditional unpacking of, what we considered to be the written, the taught, the assessed curriculum. And it quickly became a humanizing pedagogy concept. So you can see the poster on the right-hand side here, where we kind of re-envisioned and repacked what we wanted to design. And we articulated a real commitment to decolonize, to indigenize, and to humanize a real identity-centered learning and teaching approach. And this was really inspired by alumni students who presented and were keynote speakers at the kickoff event from the organization to decolonize international schools. Clara Reynolds and Svai David was there. And so the two of them really helped us to really ground our work in humanizing pedagogy principles. And so after that inspirational in-person event, we left off, and many of us who were there kept on our commitment and became facilitators of subcommittees. And the subcommittees, as David mentioned, were ways of knowing, doing, and understanding, practice, culture, and impact. And we also had an event like this where we expanded our membership by presenting what happened in Geneva, and then more people came on board, and we were able to develop. But of course, with any new group of volunteers, it took time for us to form and to norm and to really co-determine and construct how we felt the work should grow, and also to have a consistent key group of volunteers that would follow this work through. And for that, we're very grateful for our facilitators.
These were the volunteers divided by those 4 groups and subcommittees that we started with. So these people were key in exploring all the research that took place. Research was the key for us, and it was really important that any decisions that we made were always based on research. So we would like to take this opportunity to thank all those people that you can see in the screen. So thank you. Through our process, we know that every subcommittee was working, but with periodical meetings, we knew that we were all working on different areas, but we were having a very similar approach. And this approach across the development process, we diverge and converge again to consolidate and streamline our ideas. We can, in this visual, we wanted to represent how that research, analyze, and synthesize help us to get with the prototype that we were looking for. But it was our desire to design the right thing, but was always complemented. And we had always very clear in mind that the most important thing was to design things right. So we were all through this process looking or finalizing the prototype and getting all that research into a tangible product. We were not scared of going 3 steps backwards and look for something that we knew it was designing the things right. So each time that we did this diverge and converge exercise, we believe that our concepts evolve and got just stronger and stronger. During the development process, there were a few key ideas that arose. So, for example, we wanted to Rama, the idea that was one of our members from the beginning, she wrote the concept of the performative proof. So we always try to demonstrate that the truth that we were looking for through actions, through a pragmatic approach. We knew that it has to be accessible. We knew we were a task force for the international community, and we knew that had to be a product that every teachers and students of the international community will have access, and of course had to be practical for teachers. So something that they could go back to or they could use in their classrooms and their practices every day. And I think next one, yeah. So the key considerations on those lines, it was our audience. We knew that we were working for the international community, for international schools, and that this prototype had to be used by teachers, students, and members of the international community. So usability was another key consideration. We wanted to create practical tools. A clear humanizing pedagogy concept, because without clarity, there is not accountability. So all the way through the process, we got feedback from different from different people who were playing different roles, because that clarity was also key. Grounded, as I said before, we focus on research, and this product is based on the research that has been taken during these 2 years for these different groups. So all the way through, we kept the high expectations and shared goals. And of course, the commitments, the 2 sets of commitments, the educators and the institution, we made sure that are future focused and sustainable within the time.
And so part of our research was not only within our committee, but I had the opportunity to attend the ALOC conference in January of 2024. And then we shared the work that we had done so far and the concepts that we had developed and the prototypes that we had with a group of really dedicated educators to inclusion. And we received a lot of really great feedback from them. And that input was then integrated into our further development. So you can see here, I'm sure you recognize some faces on the screen here with Ceci Gomez-Galvez and Liz Cho, and lots of really great educators who are also experts in their field in this area who gave us some really key feedback. And yeah, Michael.
Then in early 2024, when our work was converging into our final concept, these contributors remained committed to doing the work, and we wanted to give them a special shout out, and a full list of committee members can be found in our guidance document.
So, and without all of these wonderful people, we would not be possible for us to be here today to share with you our work. So just a quick recap of our journey. As you can see, the product that has been shared via link in the chat here was really a result of all of this research and co-constructed designs. And we were really able to think of how we wanted to do all this through a really iterative process, and these educator and institution-wide commitments that we're going to expand and deep dive into and share with you in a moment is all packaged into one guidance document, as well as a microsite, a whole microsite that will help you to access those commitments and to help you put it into practice.
Hey.
So go on, Raisa.
October 2024 was a real pivotal month for us because we were able to finally launch these tools and ideas that we've been working on for so long to the world, really. And we launched it in a microsite, and we were able to link this microsite to the main ISADTF site. So it's really accessible for many people. And we, as a team, talked about what needed to go on this site. So we sort of curated a lot of things that we had been working on, because it is like a mountain of work that went into creating this. And so as a team, we talked about what needs to be on the site, what should people be able to access. And so the site that I'm going to share, both the ISADTF and the Google microsite, they're both a result of that work. And on the next slide, we can see pretty much all the different components that went into creating. The first is, of course, a guide and then kind of an overview document that talks about how to use a site and how to go about, from one link to the other. And then we have our overarching statement, which is what is humanizing pedagogy, to kind of ground us in the work that we're doing. We have our educator commitments, which are kind of like 7 principles. And then we have the institution-wide commitments, which are 7 processes. And they're both very useful tools that can be used by pretty much anyone. And finally, we have a glossary of key terms, as well as a call to action that Michael will talk more about in a bit. This is our overarching statement, and it's kind of been our Northern Star, or our guiding light, since the inception of this group. It's from the Nelson Mandela University, who in turn credit Paulo Freire. And I'll read it out and we can think about it. And if you have any questions, make sure you pop them in the chat. A humanizing pedagogy intentionally emphasizes the importance of recognizing and respecting each person's humanity and the experiences and knowledge that they carry. It promotes awareness and action regarding social justice issues, whilst creating a learning and teaching environment that allows individuals to fully realize their potential and feel empowered by the knowledge they acquire to make change in themselves and the world. So all of us have been talking about the work that we've been doing. So I want to give some time for everyone to sort of think about what we've talked about so far. And if you have any questions, to pop them in the chat now. We'll move on in a couple of seconds, but I'd like to leave this on for maybe 5 seconds. Okay, we'll move on to the next slide. Okay, here are the 7 educator commitments. And this is something that's really close to my heart, because with every word and phrasing, I can see a member of our very diverse group that worked on these commitments. And so I'll read them out and we'll talk more about them as the slides continue. So the first one is incorporate and value lived experiences, challenge dominant paradigms. The next is co-construct learning through reflective and responsive practice. Then promote resilience and embrace unresolved complexities. Foster joy and diversity in community. then support visionary change through inclusive partnerships, and finally, integrate environment and Indigenous knowledge for equity. You can find these on the microsite, and the next slide links to how we sort of went from the commitments to creating the self-assessment tool as kind of a roadmap for your humanizing pedagogy journey. So it's created for any educator to be able to access. So at the top, you can see the commitment, and it's followed by a brief explanation. After this, we have the subcommitments, and these subcommitments sort of amplify the commitment in itself, and they are laid out in a pedagogical progression. And what this means that one builds on the other. So for example, the first one is all about modeling. I'm just going to look in my notes so I'm sure I don't get this wrong. Yep. Give me a sec. Yep. The first one is about modeling in the classroom, then introducing the resources, then engaging with the resources, and then being able to apply the concepts meaningfully. So that's how the subcommitments are laid out. So make it like, as I said, a journey. And then finally, we have the attributes that kind of say what it should look like. And it's also a good tool for you to measure growth and development, because the hope is that this document is not a one-time use document. It's something that you continue to refer. It's almost like a reference document that helps you to work through your journey to humanize your pedagogy. And now I'm thrilled to hand over to Michael, who will talk more about the institution-wide commitments.
Thank you. So like the educator commitments, there's a set of 7 commitments that are a tool for school-wide transformation. Now, the educator ones were about the individual, educators within, and this is kind of used to support school-wide change. So our 7 institution-wide commitments, create those conditions for educators to implement those humanizing pedagogy practices. So schools can examine these commitments to examine their organizational structures and systems, raise awareness on how to best renew learning and teaching, and embed humanizing pedagogical leadership across all aspects of schooling. And each commitment is an important cornerstone that supports organizational transformation. So we're going to have a look at kind of one of them to give you a little sneak peek of what they look like, what's involved in all of them. So here is an example of what comes with each of them. Okay, so each commitment has a number of things. One is descriptors to kind of explain what is, for instance, their reflexive practice. Then it's specific actions that you can take. Okay, questions that you can inquire into, and considerations to pay attention to and address so that change process can be accelerated. And one of my favorite parts, there's a lot of favorite parts, is a learning story that illustrates each commitment and is important through common scenarios. So kind of explores what happens, the so what of each institution commitment, and how to take action with it. So great tool to maybe use in your schools to kind of explore a case study, and then maybe you can come up with some own case studies in your school to explore this institution-wide tool. And the institution-wide guidance to support planning collaborative dialogue so that it's specific areas of growth and development. So have a little pause for you to have a little engagement and look a bit into this. And we hope that after this, you can look at the humanizing pedagogy on both the educator commitments and the institution-wide and kind of unpack it a bit more within your school context. And if we can go to the next slide, great. So within this as well, we have come up with a glossary to support understanding of concepts embedded throughout our guidance document. And that's all found within the microsite. So you can look through a bunch of them there. So now it's a call to action. So we encourage you to dive into these commitments on your own, with your team, and as a school. So whatever your level of engagement is, we would love to hear from you and share your learning story. So you can submit your learning story through our microsite. And our aim is to crowdsource and provide a space for examples of practices to be shared. So it's an ongoing process where we've designed it, but we really want to hear from you and how this could be utilized within your school context. And your learning stories across diverse contexts has the potential to support the international school community by inspiring the action. And we are also looking for committed volunteers who would like to join us in our next stage of our development.
So if you'd like to join us in our next stage of development, so whilst our guidance has been released, there is more work to do to help support the Learn International School community, such as all of you tuning in today. We'd love to be able to engage with you all and to hear how you're perhaps putting these into practice, but also to help us to collect those learning stories, and also to think about what other supporting materials might schools need moving forward from this point on, and we'd love to co-construct that with you. So if you're interested in joining us, please email us, and yeah, we're a great team who really are at the heart, living these principles ourselves, and also just super co-constructive, co-collaborative, and so you can be a part of this dynamic team, which I learn so much from every time I meet with everybody, and so it's also a great professional learning experience and leadership experience for anyone interested in joining us. So I'm going to open it up now for questions, and so I'm going to stop sharing my screen as well, so I can see all of you.
I have a question. Dale here.
Hi, Dale.
Thank you very much. Great work, everybody. I'm always wondering about the application and operating these concepts and bringing them to life, and what would these practices look like in the classroom? Have you thought about models of implementation?
Dale, can you tell me more about what you mean by models of implementation?
Right. I mean, basically, it's the how and what do these practices actually look like in the classroom, and examples of those. Right. The model itself looks really, really great, and all those different components. But how is that actually done?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think this is something that the Educator group when they came up with the tool and the feedback tool, and I see some more members of our committee that were part of that process on the call here today as well, that we really wanted to think about what would that look like. And so when the attributes were articulated, furthermore, it was to give people ideas of what that could look like in your context. And as we know, international schools around the globe have such different contexts that it's going to look very different throughout. So that's really what we're hoping to do in this next phase of development, is to collect those samples of practice, and to be able to then share those samples of practice so that people get more of an idea and hopefully be inspired by that, and then be able to, more people be able to see, oh, how does this specific commitment look like in practice? And so I know some of us on the committee are already starting to use them in our own schools, and we're hoping then to be able to cultivate those stories and to have more examples of that to share. Hopefully, maybe in a year's time we'll have another webinar which is going to be more be able to share that with. That's our aim and goal, as well. So right now, I think the answers lie in all of our schools, and how people are going to really put this and take this and hopefully run with it and implement it. Yeah. Anyone else from the team like to chime in?
I'll chime in if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, building off that, I had actually great chat with Angeline about this, because I'm new into school this year. I'm a DEIJ coordinator. I was like, okay, let's do it. I'm going to do the humanizing pedagogy. And, be new in a school. And it's like, no, let me look at it, see parts of it that I can pull out of my school this year and start utilizing it, right? So it's, it's a guide, but it's also flexible in how the schools want to use it. And we hope that with it, we have educator commitments, like things that every educator can, pull from. And maybe you're picking the parts that are relevant to you and your team in different ways. And then we have the institution-wide goals. We have guidance for them, and it might look in a different way, but I think it's really into you and maybe a team to go and kind of unpack it and see what parts you can use. But it's kind of guidelines, and we really want to hear from you on the different ways that you're utilizing it. And it'll look, quite different in every school.
Okay, thank you.
What I can share also, Dale, is that I had the privilege of having the insight of some of these commitment work that was already happening, but of course it was only just recently released. But my school, we have similar competencies that are related to this, so sort of intercultural inclusion competencies for teachers. And so what we did was with that is like taking a tool like this one, but then really articulated it with our teachers, so that it was our teachers themselves who said, this is what the practice would look like. And then we co-created what a learning progression would look like as based on that. And so in some ways turning that into, say, some ICANN statements, but they were created then by our teachers. So we could see across a learning progression, then if we're going to learning, what does it look like here? And we had like a 4-point rubric that we made ourselves. And so, but we focused on not all 7 at once, but we focused on 3. In our case, it was a different set of 8 things that we had. And so we just said, let's start with these 3. And then we're going to nut that out and see what that looks like. And then really kind of dive deep rather than sort of too broad at once, because like we know that that's there. So it depends on each school. So that's just one, I can share one example of what it might look like here.
Okay.
There is a question in the chat from John, I think, and I think the answer will be kind of similar because it will depend on the context of the school and also the mission, vision, and values that every school is and how they show their commitment to the mission, vision, and values, really, and if this work is a priority for them or it is not.
Yes.
Does it answer your question, John?
And I can see La. Hi, La.
If I could follow up, my question I think would be also like, how do you navigate encouraging leadership and curriculum coordinators to move towards these standards and guidelines to improve inclusion in the school, improve the environment for all the students? Like, how do you have that conversation when there's pushback?
Go on, right,
yeah. I think one of the things that we really talked about as a team was the fact that a lot of the work is already being done. Instead of introducing this as something new, the self-evaluation tool can be used as, look at all the great work you're doing and let's highlight that. And that's why we added this, share your story, because we feel like there's a lot of good work that already is happening and we'd like people to talk about it and share it, and then maybe use the vocabulary, use the glossary to kind of frame the good work that they're doing and share it with everyone else. I think that's a good way to start, by not saying, well, we're going to change everything you do and you're going to start something new. Instead, use this tool to highlight all the good things that you're doing, and then we can talk about what our next steps are.
And for me, I think another way to shift that is to sort of consider, is this something that is another thing on the plate, or should this be the plate itself that underpins all the work that we do? And so I think, yeah, maybe perhaps like like we're hoping schools will transform themselves to become more humanizing places. And so if these are principles that will guide all decision making at a top-down level or top level as well. But there's also many different committees, the leadership committee and accreditation committee of the ISAD task force, and as well, and governance. And so, yeah, so this question also should be proposed to them, because what they then can help put into place will help this humanizing, the pedagogical practices, be able to happen as well. Sorry, thank you for being patient.
It's quite all right. I think just some of my thoughts in response to some of the questions that have come up. relate back to coming from an IB context. So I see this as a framework and also a map. DEIJ and DEIB work, I think, often falls foul of losing energy and direction sometimes, because a framework like this that isn't kind of, I suppose, very holistic in terms of supporting the educator, but also supporting institutions and leadership, because those things perhaps haven't been connected, sometimes an individual effort, particularly from maybe a DEIJ lead, has kind of just lost momentum. And I think what's helpful is that this is like a point by which you can always return to. You can always like just check in as an individual educator, but also as an institution. If you are like an individual DEIJ coordinator and you're running out of steam, you've got something concrete that you can have a conversation with leadership around. And it's going to, I think, support people to feel connected to a wider community. And it's also going to ground your practice in stuff that's been very rigorously sort of worked out. Because this has been such a collaborative process. It's had so many good brains connected to it, so much good experience. How do you, particularly as an IB school, be sort of concrete about creating a better world? What does that mean? If it is connected to basically, let's all try to be better humans, and let's try to teach in a more humanizing way. Let's try to have an institution that is founded on, are we doing harm or are we doing good? Exactly what does that mean? And I think this framework really, really helps to support all of those efforts and have common language and really, really good practice. We start to learn from each other as an international group because we're sharing these kind of stories of really great impact. Things perhaps that haven't gone well, we're learning from, as well as things that have gone well. So I think those are some of the sort of thoughts that I'm having around this work.
Thank you, La, and for sharing, and also for mentioning the IB and key members of IB curriculum development. People who work for that area were also a part of our committee with us, and so and the IB being one of the co-founders of the task force. So these principles that we've now come up with and design, I'm really hoping, and I hope that the IB is also then taking with them into their designs and into their future designs as well. So to hope also underpin their work is the goal. More questions, thoughts, or things that people like to share? We have some people from the IB in the audience also. Perhaps they'd like to to respond to Dela or to share out.
Yeah, I'm happy to hop in here. I think, that one of the tensions that I'm sorry, my name's Leah. I'm a DP curriculum manager in Group 1. I had been joining some of these meetings very early on in the process, and due to my own educational demands of writing a dissertation, I was unable to continue my commitment. So I'm very happy to be able to join this morning. I think in the IB, and again, I could also just speak from my experience. One of the things, the tension that we walk continually is that we, as you said, Law, provide a framework. And intentionally so, because we need to be flexible enough so that every context, every school context can find themselves in the framework. And so I think too, particularly at the DP, and I know Nikki was on here too from that PYP, but particularly at the DP, we offer teacher support material, but we don't often get into pedagogical practices, right? We write a curriculum that implies certain pedagogical practices, but in terms of what we provide for teachers or sort of directing people towards a certain pedagogical approach, or the plate, as Angeline said just earlier, is as I said, attention. And so we can turn it back on ourselves, and we can talk about applying, I think some of these institutional commitments that the group has come up with. And I think those conversations, well, I know those conversations are happening constantly within the IB. And so this is all to say that I don't really have an answer, but that's my reply, is that, it is, it is attention that we walk, and that, to be flexible enough implies a certain generality. And I think, Law, that's what you were saying about then it kind of loses its way, and it kind of loses its course. And so it's finding that sweet spot of, and again, perhaps it's developing a curriculum that implies a certain pedagogical requirement. So we're working on it. I'm working on it, and my colleagues here that are also on call as well. So that's the thought.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. And I think certainly like frameworks that are shared, that so that schools are then authorized to use and then evaluated to continue using is slightly different than, say, schools that are perhaps accredited to have a certain standard of accreditation, right, as well. And so I think these are both kind of external factors that may motivate schools and educators to adopt certain practices and to make sure that those kind of pedagogical growth and transformation will happen in a certain way. But and that's one thing. But each individual and as educator, each pedagogical leadership team, each school in itself, we can also create our own sets of accountability measures and own sets of commitments to how do we want this to look in our school, and what we feel would be important for us. What do we value and want to prioritize and budget for, and to make that happen. And so I think internal motivation to perhaps adopt this humanizing pedagogy work that we have, I'd encourage everyone to do that as well. Yeah. I think, Nikki, you unmuted as well. Yeah, welcome.
Thank you, Angeline, and it's lovely to be here and to see everybody driven by this common passion. And thanks, and Leah, those comments earlier are very helpful. But I just wanted to add that there is a project being going on within the IB about with what we're calling our curriculum audit. And there's been some work developing a framework of tools that can be used for curriculum audit. Now, we've done this internally. We've been doing it as a process, but I know that the tools and the framework is going to be shared more widely in the near future. So I'm going to suggest to the person that's been organising that they contact you directly, because maybe there's a link there and we can share some of that information through the website. I think it'll be a series of webinars and so on, and we can let you know more about that when it happens. But it's I think there'll be quite a valuable set of tools for anybody who wants to use them. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Nikki. Nikki, one of the PYP curriculum managers. Is that?
Sorry, I should have said I'm curriculum manager, PYP.
Thank you. Sarah?
Thank you, Angeline. Just very briefly, really, schools working towards visions and action within the whole area of DIG work often ask for a framework for all of the reasons that you've all mentioned above. Whether that be how do we get everybody on board, John's point, of what happens when you get the pushback, but in terms of shared agreements and shared commitments. And this is just such an amazing tool for people to be able to explore without having just to look at a blank piece of paper, because I think your point, Angeline, is really important, that each school, of course, will shape this according to their context. And yet that big blank piece of paper is just so scary for all of us when we start to plot what we want to do and how we want to do it. And so this tool that you've developed between you from so many different contexts is just such a wonderful support, I think, for schools to be able to orientate themselves on that journey of planning. So huge thanks and admiration and respect for all of you who've contributed towards this. It's absolutely amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you, Sarah, for your kind words. And yeah, it's really the whole team, many of us who are here with us today, so that I can see here, including La, and yeah, and Leah, who was with us for a little while as well, Rushika, yeah, so many people I can shout out who are joining us here today, and also the people who are not here with us, but there is a full list of our contributors in our guidance document. And which we will also hope to revise on an annual basis. So if there is something that you notice or see or wonder about that could make our work better, do contact us via that email address that was shared before, which is on our microsite as well under a contact subpage. And so if you have any suggestions to help move this work forward, we want to continually grow and live out those principles that we're saying everyone should adopt. So that reflexive praxis is also really important for us. Yeah. La?
I think I just wanted to talk about an elephant and how the term humanizing pedagogy is very, very timely in giving us an alternative set of vocabulary other than DEIJ. Because as we know, particularly in Northern America, it's been cancelled left, right, and centre. And I think now, if we can have a common language around why and how this work is universally necessary, I think that's super, super helpful. I think the other thing I'm thinking about is something like badges. How do we encourage adoption of the framework? Do we, as an educator, perhaps earn a little HP badge, or do we, as an institution, demonstrate that our sort of allegiance or alliance with this framework somehow by also earning ourselves a little HP badge? I'd love, people to be thinking around how do we increase engagement, adoption, sort of market, I suppose, this, for want of a better word, and just encourage everyone to get on board. I don't know. It's just a question to the group, really, I suppose.
What a great question to think around and ideate around, and it's a great question I think also for the whole task force, because what we're doing in this one committee would not be possible without all of the other things, like even with hiring practices that are inclusive and etc. And so yeah, this idea of having some sort of something to strive towards, some sort of if people need a badge or a recognition to help motivate and to to have schools have something to strive for. Perhaps that's something that the task force co-founders can continue with that conversation. But it's questions like that we would also love to explore in our committee. So if you want to be part of the stage moving forward and to ideate something like that further, then do reach out and join us. Ellen.
Because of the words humanizing pedagogy, it just keeps me coming back to the Human Restoration Project, because their big slogan is humanizing education. I literally have the t-shirt. So I was just wondering if you looked at their work in doing your research, or if you, I don't know, thinking about what La just said, partnering with them maybe to amplify impact. So I don't know if
Thanks,
you
Ellen. Yeah,
I
know I'm not familiar with that, but members of my team may be. But that's certainly another thing too that we could perhaps explore.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, for these great ideas. Keep them coming. and
Before we head out, I just also want to say a big thank you to Angeline for like her fearless coordination, facilitation. I've learned so much from you from DEIJ, but also the way that you've led kind of the task force and the reiterative process. So big, I don't know, shout out to Angeline, because you led it, but you made it so inclusive, and it was really well organized, and continues to be. So thank you so much, Angeline.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. Very kind words. And also, it would not have been possible without the great team that I had, who were really dedicated and committed every step of the way. So thank you all. Well, I'm loving all the comments and thoughts that are being shared also in the chat. Yeah, people sharing what they're doing, and yeah, I think John, did you want to expand further on any wonderings or thoughts that you might have?
I was just thinking about that, and when there is these periods where there's a backlash against DEI or other progressive movements for inclusivity, that how we are able to hold the line and develop language and processes that hold the line, and also maybe even advance things during the backlash periods, is where we can help our work advance the most, as far as being in a better position when the cycles shift again. I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. So like what I really liked what Limor was saying about using the language of humanizing pedagogy as a language that averts that there are some folks, especially in senior leadership and elsewhere, that are resistant to the language of using the term DEI at this point. And I've heard at AIE last year there was a room full of directors that was joking about DEI finally being dead. So those things occur, and we know that they're there, but so having different language to use to be a more inclusive world for all the students that are our future global citizens is really important. And so I appreciate the language choice and the approach a lot. That was it there.
Thank you. Yeah, it's sadly the trend has been this backlash is real, and I think, you know, one of the steps is by having all of you show up, which you have today. And I think that says that itself is a lot. And I thank you all for doing that here today. And hopefully that you know, what you do next after after this is also key. So all of the tiny things that we feel are small and we do maybe in isolation really do add up. And I think and hopefully this session has inspired you all to take on this sort of the guidance that we were sharing, and our team kind of poured our hearts into creating, because we want to make an impact, and to have that, and to sort of, and then, you know, for you to hopefully then transform them into what it would look like in your own contexts, in your own schools, and then to share your stories with us about what that looked like. And with that, hopefully we've sowed the seeds that will grow and continue to grow, because even if, for example, even if people, you know, concrete over those pavements, you know, nature will come through and crack and make cracks, and those fractures that we continue to chip away at will make a difference. And I think that yeah, I thank you all for joining us, and continuing that passion that you have, and find us in our community. So contact us if you are struggling. That's what we're here for, to help you, and so, and to connect you with you know, schools and so on. So that's something that we're hoping to be able to serve in the next stage of our development.
Angeline, John suggested a group photo. Would people feel comfortable with a group photo? Is there anyone that would prefer not to? Should we all smile? That was a good one. I'll do another. Lovely. Thanks. And somebody asked if the recording would be shared. I think it's probably Abby behind our ECIS logo there, and we'll make sure that the recording is shared.
Thank you. Yep. Well, thank you very much, ECIS, for hosting us today, and thank you to Michael, David, Raisa for joining, and also for other members of our committee who have also showed up today. And if you have a colleague who you think, oh, you missed a great morning session and there's still day left, it's never too late to join us in the afternoon. So and then they can hear for themselves what we've been doing, and to engage in some more conversations to move our work forward. And please keep sharing this work with everyone you know. And yes, and the recording of this, or even to invite us into your school community. Part of this next step of stages could also look like members of us sharing the same presentation. If you'd like us to share that with your team as well, we're happy to take this on a roadshow. Yeah, we're calling it our roadshow. So, and if anyone's here in any of the events coming up and have a slot for us to present, to reach out and let us know. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.